You see, there was this bee.
Welcome to Red Recaps. For today's video, we will be taking a recap of a Netflix TV series, Man vs. Bee, a comedy series. Now let's see who wins this battle. The series starts with a man, Trevor, on trial in a court of law. Blaming the bee for his actions, he apologizes to the victims. A couple had hired their usual house sitter to look after the home amid their holiday. The woman, Nina, asked her husband, Christian, when the usual house sitter was arriving, to which he stated how a new house sitter was coming. Trevor rang the house gate, showing up on the security feed. He's checked out for verification. He showed his identification, albeit upside down. The woman let him through the gate. He appeared mesmerized by the magnificence of the house. Whilst he introduced himself to Nina, he got her full name wrong on multiple occasions, even when reminding himself of her name by looking at his phone. Nina eventually corrected him and let him come inside. Nina instructed Trevor as to the necessary things he must know. He is given a manual and introduced to the dog, Cupcake, whom he is told is allergic to peanut butter. Christian led Trevor into the garage. The sight of the luxury cars shocked him. Christian tells Trevor the security code to the library and the emergency override feature, which is Nina's voice. He attempted to write this down, but is instructed against doing so by Nina, who emphasized how this information is in the manual. They instructed him that their dog is not allowed in the library or their bedroom. Trevor is then shown his bedroom and is then questioned by Nina about his previous experience as a house sitter. He's honest, stating he's new to the company, but promises this is familiar territory to him. As Nina is trying to leave, Trevor attempts to pick out a jacket for her. Whilst doing so, he causes a chain of balls to fall, causing a mess. He called his daughter, stating how they will soon spend a holiday together. During the call, however, he is distracted by the bee. He knocks the sculpture over, leaving it broken on the floor. Whilst looking for glue to fix it with, he left the manuscript on the stove. He glued the sculpture back together and then attempted to dry it with a hairdryer. This caused the broken piece to go flying across the floor. Upon another attempt, he glued it perfectly back together. Trevor then started cooking a meal with canned food he found in the cupboard. He poured its contents into a saucepan and lighted the gas. Unbeknown to him, he had lit the wrong stove and instead was slowly burning the manuscript. He again spotted the bee, trapping it in a glass. During its eventual escape, Trevor noticed his food was still cold. He turned the gas up in an attempt to make it cook faster, not realizing he was now burning the manuscript even further. The dog then noticed the bee and chased it into the library, ultimately trapping itself inside. Trevor notices this and attempted to free it from the library. Not remembering the password, he searched for the manuscript, eventually realizing it was now in flames on the kitchen stove. Using the kitchen tap, he managed to extinguish the fire, the manual, however, being destroyed. Trevor made his way back to the library. Upon multiple wrong passcode attempts, he got himself locked out of the system. Thinking of another way to get in, he grabbed a hammer and tried to smash the library glass. The hammer ricocheted and damaged the expensive painting behind him. He eventually realized how to use the voice recognition system to open the door, after which he promptly chased the dog out and searched for the bee. Before sending himself to bed, Trevor fixed the painting with tape and restored the library to its original condition. Once in bed, he FaceTimed his daughter. She complained about his frequency of calling and also had a brief conversation with his ex-wife, Jess. He then set a house alarm using his voice, and the bedroom locked as a result. He later noticed the bee in his room and began chasing it. He opened his bedroom door and inadvertently caused the alarm to trip as a result. The next morning, a policeman arrived, inquiring about the alarm. Unbeknownst, the police officer, Trevor, when conversing with him, had a bee caught up in his trousers. When asked about what happened the previous night, Trevor made various odd gestures in response to the sensation of the bee up his trousers. Once the officer left, Trevor failed in trying to trap the bee in his trousers. Trying to catch the bee again, he laid a trap of peanut butter in the microwave. Trevor hid and waited. Whilst hiding, the dog stumbled upon and ended up licking the knife used to spread the peanut butter with. Once Trevor noticed the bee was on the trap in the microwave, he reappeared out of hiding to trap the bee, but was then called by Nina, inquiring about the alarm that went off the previous night. She asked to see the dog, who Trevor had noticed earlier licking the peanut butter of the knife, was displaying unwell symptoms. The Wi-Fi connection luckily went, which caused the call to end. He ran the dog to a separate room and focused his attention on the bee, who he had just shut in the microwave. Instead of cooking it, he had a shift of conscience and decided to carry the microwave outside to then set the bee free. Upon freeing the bee, it began flying back to the open house door. Trevor raced to close the door before it got back in the house, but ultimately lost and as a result locked himself out. After noticing the dog had a smart collar on to assist in unlocking the pen door, he lured it toward him with a cat and eventually grabbed its collar. He placed it round his neck and tried to get in through the pen door, ultimately failing and being left trapped halfway through. In front of him was a mountain of dog poo, which ultimately ended up smothering him in the face after the dog, whilst chasing the cat, bit him in the leg, causing enough force to push him through the pen door. He again spotted the bee inside the house. After chasing it around with a blender, which caused a piece of decoration to be destroyed, he followed it into the chimney. Shortly thereafter, he was again interrupted by the officer. He informed him of burglars who had been operating in the surrounding area. He went to the shower to clean himself up, which he eventually, after pressing the wrong button causing music to play instead of water, managed to do. Whilst in the shower, he again spotted the bee. After spraying the bee with water, he followed it all the way to the master bedroom, eventually blowing it away with the hairdryer. The bee later flew inside the piano. Upon noticing this, Trevor unsuccessfully utilized the piano autoplay feature in an attempt to kill the bee with its hammer mechanisms. After tracking the bee with a vacuum machine, he eventually engulfed it. He later burned the vacuum bag, not noticing that the bee had escaped. After cleaning the house, Trevor headed for bed, video calling his daughter before sleeping. She let him know that her mom won't let him see her until he gets a job. He tells her of the campsite holiday he has planned. Later that night, burglars broke into the house. They decided against taking anything due to the artwork they were there for being fake. During this event, Trevor made his way into the bathroom, again spotting the bee. He chased it out of the bathroom. After making his way into the lounge, he began shouting. This disturbed the burglars, causing them to hide, thinking Trevor was there for them. Trevor then locked the alarm system. This prevented the burglars from escaping. The next morning, the same officer arrived at the door, stating how there was a report from the neighbors of a suspicious car in the driveway. The cop and Trevor later saw the burglars were still in the house. They were then promptly arrested. After grabbing a canister to clean the muddy footprints the burglars left behind, Trevor noticed that the can is unsuitable for animals. Upon seeing this, he set up a trap using different sprays, peanut butter, and bread. He attempted to prevent the dog from falling for the trap, but ultimately failed, leaving the dog and the bee unconscious. After receiving a call from the owners, hearing the burglary news, Nina inquired about the dog. He stated that everything was okay and started playing with the dog's unconscious, limp body in an attempt to prove all is well. The bee ended up surviving and followed Trevor into one of Christian's expensive cars as he was rushing the dog to the vet. On the way there, the bee distracted him and caused him to involuntarily act in a way which damaged the car. Upon returning home from the vets, he searched for the bee inside the car, ultimately damaging it. Trevor, after watching a YouTube video about solitary bees, created a man-made bomb in an attempt to kill the bee. Luring the bee in with honey, he exploded the bomb, which caused a massive explosion. During this time, the owners of the house arrived back from their vacation. They saw the explosion, the effect of which caused the dog to be trapped under a piece of wreckage. After Trevor noticed the bee had survived, he went crazy and started setting the house on fire. The couple walked in on him doing this. Later, in a court of law, he is sentenced to 3 years in jail. 3 months into his sentence, however, he overhears the house burglars discuss the fake burglary scheme they were involved, paid for by Christian, in an attempt to receive a massive insurance payout. Trevor complained about this to the neighborhood cop, which later spiraled into the arrest of Christian. Trevor was later released and given £5,000 from the insurance company as a thank you. The series ends with Trevor taking his daughter on a camping trip. Soon after they arrive, however, Trevor is interrupted by a bee. He tried to kill it once more. Have you enjoyed the video? Leave a comment down below and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching Red Recaps. See you in the next video.